Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be building a medieval city castle and expanding on the first part, which was the entrance, adding a lot of towers, wall sections and houses throughout to make it an epic castle. To start off, let's first place an outline wall all throughout the ground to make sure every tower is in the correct spot. The walls for now are flat, but will receive a lot of detail later. For now I just add a bit of stone brick and stone mixed in throughout. This is going to be a very big build, so to start off, we really need those resources. So a lot of granite, andesite, stone and cobble from my stone generator, and a lot of prismarine for the roofs, mainly the dark prismarine variant, and of course crafting up in all different kind of forms. Now the other main resources are wood variants, so spruce and oak wood need to be gathered as well. Okay, there we are. Now it's finally time to start on the first building of today. This building is going to be a little house on the outer edge of the castle, primarily made out of stone brick and a brick roof. Attached right next to it, I will make a second building completely out of granite. And to start completely finishing off this very first section of the build, I will also be adding a small tower next to it. This tower will be primarily made out of stone, with some wooden elements sticking out to give a bit more detail to the build. For this roof I went with the dark prismarine, which I absolutely love on this build. Now for a bit more variance in the tower structures, I went with another tower, but this one is circular. For this build I think it is important to have lots of spires and towers all throughout to make it look very fantasy-like. And with another deep slate roof up top, this brings us to the end of this first building section. Okay, this adds a lot, but it needs to be far more vertical. Of course the mountain is quite a bit higher, so that's why we're building on top as well later, but for now I want to focus on the backside by adding more towers, more wall sections and more houses as well. I thought it best to, in this case, completely outline these towers that will go in. On the backside there's quite a bit more space, so there was quite a bit more opportunity to put in a lot of towers. So everything is blocked out, the shapes are in, and this gives an idea of where verticality will be achieved. And with just a few little additions, this really transforms the entire look of it, from just a simple flat wall to an actual tower. Yes, look at that, that is much better. Now of course everything is just disconnected and it needs a lot of wall segments in between with houses everywhere. That will make the build stand out far better. I've added in some small sections in between to kind of mark out where I want the levels of the castle to be. Also at the back I removed a bit of the mountain section, as this is the place where I think I will attach the main wall to. That is the city wall going around the entire kingdom. But yeah, even with the detail in, these towers don't look finished, because they aren't. The roof needs to go up top with the upper sections as well. This is the next part we'll be putting in. And there we built most of the towers going in today, and it all looks a bit disjointed. It's kind of weird to think that this is actually most of the towers already done, but still not looking like a castle at all. But that will be fixed by putting all these buildings in between. The first little building I will be adding is another granite building. This color isn't a feature color. Like the grey of the stone, this granite brown needs to be all over this place. And finishing it off with a dark deep slate roof, also on an angle like I did in the first episode. And that was a struggle. You may think the second time would be easier, but not by much. Finishing off the other section with a little wall. When placing in the towers, I didn't really think about all the places in between them. I just looked at the overall configuration from a distance. This meant I ended up with some really small thin sections leading upwards to the mountain. But I think I can turn this little almost mistake into a feature by building a very thin steep pathway up the mountain in this little section between the towers and buildings. At the end of this pathway there will be a little building here to end it off nicely. Same goes for the... How do I get over there? There we are. As the building will go in there as well. And those things together will finish the lowest section of this castle. To differentiate the color a bit and make a little bit of a pop, I decided to add an entirely black building to it as well. I thought this looked really cool. But okay, quick little update. I really didn't like the deep slate. That's way too dark for this build. It would fit in definitely on another one, but not this castle. I changed it to Packmud instead, which has a way less intense color to it. And now it is time to move to the main part of this build, the upper part. I already made the outline for the staircase, but now it's time to put in the stairs by mixing stone and andesite variants to give a weathered pathway look, leading us up into the upper section. Okay, there's plenty of space back here and a lot of spaces need to be fixed here. You can look into the lower side buildings as well, with a little grass patch sticking up a bit too far. So first course of action, let's get off this grass, place in the stone floor and get a nice base for building. Now it is finally time to build up the part of the castle that will stand out the most. This will be the throne room with towers and buildings on the side. Now to make this an absolute feature building, I decided to make it all out of tough blocks. This still gives the same look as the stone does, with the washed out grey, but adding that green tint to it really helps to make this place stand out. And I think that really works as the top center part of the build. The overall structure won't be too massive, as that would stand out really weird with the rest of the buildings being quite small. But I went with a tall, slim design with large windows looking over the land. And there it is, the first section of the throne room is done, fit for a king or queen. I also made the palace interior in the last episode, which has 2 thrones as well, but I think a king or a queen can never have enough seats of power, at least in their mind. Now it looks a bit thin and narrow, but I think when I add the other walls, the flooring and the ceiling, this will really help. Also I will be placing in some side buildings. Now let's build in that mentioned filler building. Also this one will be made out of granite. There's a theme going on here. Although I changed a lot with the configurations and the sizes of all buildings, I kept the themes consistent when I used the same materials. Of course it adds a lot of interest to make all different kind of buildings, but it shouldn't be completely random, as that would just look messy. With the filler granite building in, it is time to add the 2 supporting towers next to the throne room. I made sure to make these both towers differing enough by making one a square, tall building and the other one will be circular. Also the design and the color of the roof will vary. Now it is time to add in the biggest tower of the build. This is gonna be the circular tower capping off the throne room and being on the absolute edge of the castle. It also looks like the tower that is near the entrance of the build. This tower will definitely give you great views over the kingdom and also for potential invaders. This again comes back to differ it a bit, but not change everything, as that would look too messy. Oh, and just look what the tower adds to it. This really brings in the feel together. You can truly see the size of it, but way better from below. Of course I'm yet to still add the throne room in. Now I've just made the 2 side walls, but with the front wall, the wall at the back and the entire interior, including the roof up top, that will truly transform this build and make it look complete. I think the best course of action is to add the front, add the back, then the roof, make it dry, and then add the interior. You may notice my skin looks a little bit different in these upcoming sections, but that's because I filmed these sections during an outage on the Mojang servers. So, first adding in the front, then the outer back part, and then finishing off the entire backside. Yeah, I think that works from the back. Now, finally adding in the entire roof, and with that, this build is pretty much complete on the castle side. And with that, the look of this castle is mostly finished. Of course, excluding a lot of detail. In this upcoming part, I will show you 3 different methods of editing. First like this, which is just a progress update, then moving on with the building montage, and ending off with the time lapse. Could you let me know in the comments which one is preferred, or should I use all 3 like I'm doing now? Thank you in advance. And now it is time to finalize all the details on this castle by adding a lot of greenery around the place to really give that pop of color and nature. Also adding in the interiors of the buildings to make this castle feel come alive. The interiors will remain kind of simple by just adding wood walls, wood floors, a kitchen, a few beds, bookshelves, plant pots and some lanterns for lighting, but with that looks very cozy and nice. Now after that I want to just add one more thing to this building to give it a bit more structure. And that is by raising this entry area. Now after you come into the city gates, it's just a sheer drop off beneath, which doesn't really work, I have to say. So I'll be adding a little bit of a retaining wall and a higher platform on top, with the building at the end of it. This will make for a nice entry plaza. And to finish off the plaza nicely, I added a weathered and textured floor to it. Now it is time to start working on the final building of this episode. I wanted to finish off this plaza with a boarding house. For all people that don't have a home yet, can stay here, station their horses beneath and go in a bed up top. I wanted to do something inspired by the Tudor style, like seen in Germany or Austria mostly. To start the structure off, I added a stone brick base in with minimal windows and some openings for the horses to be stationed. Second, adding a line of wood up top, as the second floor will be made out of wood and wool. For the frame of the build, I landed on oak wood, as I think that lighter color of wood would really work nicely here. Also, like mentioned, I will be adding in some white wool as the backing of it, mixed in with some white concrete powder to just give a little bit of extra texture to it. But the biggest part of the texture isn't in the wool or the white concrete, but is made by banners of all things. I thought of this nice technique to add some brown or black lines, vertical, diagonal or horizontal, or even in cross shapes to resemble wood-like elements like on the Tudor style that I want this build to represent. When just placing a few of these banners it looks a bit strange, but looking at the entire picture I really think this completes the look very well. And I'm finishing off this roof with a very simple design by lining the edges with stone brick and bricks behind it making up the rest of the roof. And with that brings us to the end of the episode. The entire castle is done. Well, I mean not the entire back part of it with the city, but the front and the mountain part is completely finished and looking nice. I think the second part added so much to it and gives a far better composition than it was before. Going in, we walk over the wooden walkway into the main gate of the castle, where we enter on the plaza with a nice little decorated custom tree up top and with the boarding Tudor house in the back. Of course, this lonely building will later be surrounded by all other kinds of buildings. Going up in the first house, I will give you a quick overview of what these houses actually end up looking like. With a table, chairs, kitchen, some paintings, bookshelves and beds up top. This is a very simply decorated but tastefully done house. The way up the castle is by this small narrow pathway that we constructed earlier in the video. I think this pathway does complete the look of an old medieval castle built on a mountainside. Walking between the buildings, we can enter under one tower via little wooden steps up into the main staircase leading up to the throne room. Now, before showing the throne room, on the other side of the build I also added some trees and finished off all buildings on this side as well, to not just give one facade of the build which can only be looked at from one angle. I wanted to make this build look complete, from any angle you would look at. Now going up top, we first land on a small little plaza in front of the throne room. This is where people can gather before seeing the king or queen. And entering into the throne room, this is my favorite room of the build. It looks very medieval and also still looks grand, even though it's not that big at all. I think this space came out very nicely for the size it is, with a great viewing space at the back to see the sun go down. And that is it, the tour is done, the castle's looking amazing, especially from a distance, looming over the city that will be built in front of it. Thank you for watching, see you next time, and have a great day.